My future in-laws want me to sign a prenup because they think I'm after their son's money. They were shocked when I agreed without hesitation, but what they didn't know was that I just wanted to protect my money from his broke ass. My boyfriend has this inflated sense of superiority, mainly because of his job. He's convinced that he's better than everyone, especially me, because he assumes I'm just a barista. He loves to belittle me, always saying that I'm broke and should stick to making lats for him in the future, because I'll never be more than a housewife. I didn't bother correcting him because I found it amusing to watch someone so delusional. After all, he was living paycheck to paycheck, while I had quietly built a successful business. I never had to worry about money, whether I was vacationing abroad or indulging in luxury shopping sprees. Despite his attitude, I stayed with him, hoping to rekindle the feelings I once had. But when he arranged for me to meet his parents, I knew there was no salvaging the relationship. Wanting to make a good impression, I wore my best designer clothes and a diamond necklace. The moment I introduced myself, his mom gave me a cold, judgmental glare. She looked me up and down and accused me of taking advantage of her son's kindness. According to her, he could be debt-free if it weren't for my supposed spending habits. I was taken aback by her audacity and asked what she meant. She didn't hesitate to call me stupid, claiming that I was draining her son's finances. That set the tone for the entire dinner. His mom loudly declared that she disapproved of me, labeling me a gold digger who was making her son buy me expensive gifts, pointing to my diamond necklace as proof. The irony was lost on her. My boyfriend had never bought me anything expensive. I calmly explained that I bought the necklace with money I'd earned through investing, but she wasn't listening. Instead, she demanded that if we were thinking of marriage, a prenuptial agreement was necessary to protect her son's assets. My boyfriend quickly agreed, saying he was afraid I'd take him for everything he was worth. He even accused me of constantly asking for expensive things, when in reality, I had asked for something nice just once, after he dragged me to McDonald's for what he called a fancy date. He threw a fit about it for a week, whining about how ungrateful I was and how hard he worked to provide for me. By the time we got to that dinner, my expectations of him were practically non-existent. But somehow, he managed to lower the bar even further. I decided it was time to give him a taste of his own medicine. I agreed with his mom, saying we absolutely needed a prenup, because I wanted to protect my money and assets from him. The table erupted in laughter, with my boyfriend laughing the loudest. He told me it was cute that I was so hopeful and advised me to stick to making lats. That was the final straw. I looked him in the eye and confessed that I owned the cafe, where I supposedly just made lats. It was so successful that I was opening a second location. My boyfriend laughed, dismissing my words as a joke, and told me to stop embarrassing myself. I reminded him of the designer clothes in my closet, the Rolex on his wrist that I had bought, and the fact that I was planning to take him on a vacation to Europe. I told him that I wasn't just better than him. I was leagues ahead because I made smart financial decisions, unlike him, who couldn't even avoid having his card declined at fast food joints. He lost it. He grabbed me by the wrist, dragging me to his car, and ranted the entire way back to his apartment. Once we got there, he paraded me for keeping my success a secret, demanded that I pay off his car, buy him a house, and even clear his debts. I was done. I told him my money wasn't for him to leech off of. He called me a bitch, and that was it. I snapped. I yanked the Rolex off his wrist and smashed it under my heel. He dropped to his knees, crying about how much it would cost to fix. I wasn't done. I kept stomping on it until it was in pieces. He cursed me out, but I just told him that this was the difference between us. I could buy 10 more Rolexes without even noticing the cost, while he barely had $2 to his name. His fury didn't faze me. I broke up with him on the spot and walked out of his crappy apartment, leaving him to wallow in his self-pity. As I walked away from his apartment, the weight of the relationship lifted off my shoulders. The night air felt cool against my skin, and I allowed myself a moment to breathe, savoring the freedom that came with finally cutting ties. I could still hear his muffled shouts from behind the door, but they were nothing more than background noise now, like a distant echo of a past life that no longer mattered. I headed straight for my car, sliding into the driver's seat with a sense of calm that I hadn't felt in a long time. I glanced at my reflection in the rearview mirror, the diamond necklace catching the light. It was a symbol, not of wealth, but of my independence, of everything I had built on my own. As I started the engine, I couldn't help but smile. This was a new beginning. The next morning, I woke up to a flurry of messages on my phone. My ex had blown up my inbox with apologies, threats, and everything in between. I deleted them all without a second thought. But what caught my attention was a string of messages from his mother. She must have gotten my number from him after our blowout. Her messages were venomous, accusing me of breaking her son's heart and ruining his life. She warned me that I'd regret ever crossing her family. I laughed. If she thought her words could intimidate me, she clearly didn't know who she was dealing with. But instead of responding, I blocked her. They were both out of my life now, and I intended to keep it that way. With my phone silenced, I turned my attention to the day ahead. I had a meeting with my business partner to finalize the plans for our second cafe location. The first cafe had been a passion project, something I had poured my heart and soul into, and seeing it thrive had been the most rewarding experience of my life. Expanding was the next logical step, and I was determined to make it a success. As I drove to the cafe, I thought about the future. My ex had always tried to belittle my dreams, but now I had the space to pursue them without his negativity holding me back. The new location was in a prime spot downtown, and I had big plans for it. I envisioned a sleek, modern design with an inviting atmosphere, something that would draw in both regulars and new customers alike. I was planning to introduce a gourmet menu, partnering with local bakers and chefs to create a unique experience that went beyond just coffee. The meeting went smoothly, and by the time we were done, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. My business partner, Lucy, had been with me since the beginning. She was sharp, driven, and one of the few people who knew the full extent of my success. We grabbed lunch after the meeting, and as we sat in a cozy bistro, she couldn't help but notice my good mood. "You're glowing," Lucy remarked with a grin. "What's got you so happy today?" I told her about the breakup, sparing none of the details. She listened intently, her eyes widening in disbelief at some of the things my ex had said and done. "Good riddance," she said when I finished. "You don't need that kind of negativity in your life. You're better off without him and his psycho mom." "Tell me about it," I agreed, raising my glass in a mock toast. To new beginnings. We clinked glasses, and as we sipped our drinks, I felt a sense of camaraderie that I hadn't felt in a while. Lucy had always been supportive, and having her in my corner made me realize just how lucky I was. I had a thriving business, a close-knit circle of friends, and a future that was full of possibilities. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into work. The new cafe was coming together beautifully, and every day brought new challenges and triumphs. I spent long hours overseeing the renovations, hiring staff, and fine-tuning the menu. It was exhausting, but it was the kind of exhaustion that left me feeling fulfilled at the end of the day. One afternoon, as I was going over some paperwork, my phone buzzed. It was a notification from Bloom, the investment app that had taught me everything I knew about finances. I had set up alerts for major market changes, and this one caught my eye. A particular stock I had invested in was skyrocketing, and my portfolio was about to see a significant boost. I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Every decision I had made, every risk I had taken, was paying off. I had come a long way from the girl who had once struggled to make ends meet. Now, I was in control of my destiny, and nothing could stop me. But as I basked in my success, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. I had been so focused on my business that I hadn't taken time for myself. The breakup, the stress of expansion, and the constant hustle had left little room for anything else. I realized I needed to do something just for me. That's when I decided to book a solo trip to Europe. I had always wanted to explore the world on my own terms, and now was the perfect time. I planned the itinerary carefully, choosing destinations that had always fascinated me: Paris, Rome, Barcelona, and a few hidden gems off the beaten path. As the departure date approached, I felt a mix of excitement and nerves. This trip was more than just a vacation. It was a journey of self-discovery. I wanted to reconnect with myself, to rediscover the passions and interests that had been buried under the weight of my past relationship. The day finally came, and as I boarded the plane, I felt a sense of liberation. This was my time, my adventure, and I was determined to make the most of it. The first stop was Paris, the city of lights and love. But I wasn't there for romance. I was there to fall in love with life again. I spent my days wandering the cobblestone streets, visiting art galleries, and indulging in the finest cuisine. I sipped wine by the Seine, watched the sunset from the Eiffel Tower, and lost myself in the charm of the city. Each city brought new experiences and revelations. In Rome, I marveled at the ancient architecture and felt a deep connection to the history that surrounded me. In Barcelona, I was captivated by the vibrant culture and the warmth of the people. Everywhere I went, I felt a little more alive, a little more in tune with who I was and who I wanted to be. By the time I returned home, I was a changed person. The trip had given me a fresh perspective on life and a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to take on the world, but this time, on my own terms. The new cafe opened to rave reviews, and it quickly became the go-to spot for locals and tourists alike. Business was booming, and I was thriving, both personally and professionally. I had everything I needed, and for the first time in a long time, I felt truly content. But life has a funny way of throwing curveballs. Just when I thought I had it all figured out, I received a letter in the mail. It was from my ex's lawyer, demanding that I pay for the damages to the Rolex I had destroyed. I couldn't believe the nerve of him, but instead of getting angry, I laughed. This was just another pathetic attempt to cling to the life he thought he deserved. I didn't even bother responding. I had moved on, and nothing he or his family did could touch me anymore. I was in control of my life, and I wasn't about to let anyone take that away from me. As I stood in my new cafe, watching the bustling crowd and the smiles on my customers' faces, I knew I had made the right choices. I was living the life I had always dreamed of, and there was no going back. The future was bright, and I was ready for whatever came next. A few months after opening the new cafe, my life had settled into a satisfying rhythm. Business was thriving, and the community had embraced the new spot with open arms. I was receiving offers from investors who were eager to partner with me on future ventures, but I was cautious. Expanding too quickly could dilute the essence of what I had built, and I wasn't willing to compromise the quality that had brought me success. But amidst all the professional excitement, I found myself yearning for something more personal, something that had nothing to do with work or success. The solo trip to Europe had rekindled a desire in me to explore not just the world, but also my relationships, both with others and with myself. One evening, as I was closing up the cafe, a familiar face walked in. It was Emma, an old friend from college who I hadn't seen in years. We had drifted apart after graduation, each of us getting caught up in our own lives, but seeing her now brought back a flood of memories. "Hey, stranger," she said with a warm smile. "I heard you were doing big things, so I had to come see it for myself." We hugged and I invited her to sit down. We spent the next few hours catching up on everything we had missed in each other's lives. Emma had moved to a different city after college, started a family, and was now a successful architect. She was still the same vibrant, down-to-earth person I had known, and reconnecting with her felt like finding a missing piece of myself. As we talked, I realized how much I had missed having close friendships. My focus on work had left little time for anything else, and I had let many important relationships slip away. Emma's visit was a reminder that success wasn't just about money or business. It was also about the connections we make and the people we choose to share our lives with. "Why don't we plan a weekend getaway?" Emma suggested. "Just the two of us, like old times. We can catch up properly and take a break from all the craziness." The idea appealed to me immediately. A weekend away with an old friend was exactly what I needed to recharge and reconnect. We decided on a trip to a cozy cabin in the mountains, a place where we could relax, hike, and just enjoy each other's company. The weekend getaway turned out to be exactly what I needed. The fresh mountain air, the tranquil surroundings, and the easy conversations with Emma helped me unwind in a way I hadn't in a long time. We talked about everything: our hopes, our fears, the challenges we had faced over the years, and the lessons we had learned. One night, as we sat by the fireplace, sipping wine and reminiscing about our college days, Emma brought up a topic I hadn't expected. "So, what's the deal with your love life?" she asked, raising an eyebrow playfully. "Anyone special in the picture?" I laughed, shaking my head. "Honestly, no. After my last relationship, I've been more focused on myself and my business. I'm not sure I'm ready to dive back into the dating pool just yet. Emma nodded thoughtfully. I get that. But don't close yourself off completely. You've worked hard and built an amazing life for yourself. You deserve to share it with someone who appreciates you for who you are. Her words stuck with me long after our trip ended. Emma was right. I had built something incredible, but I had also closed myself off from the possibility of finding happiness outside of my work. It was something I needed to think about, and for the first time in a long time, I was open to the idea of letting someone new into my life. As the weeks went by, I started making small changes. I reconnected with old friends, spent more time with family, and allowed myself to explore interests outside of work. I even started attending social events and gatherings that I would have previously declined. It was a gradual process, but I could feel myself opening up to new experiences and possibilities. One evening, while attending a charity event that one of my cafe's regular customers had invited me to, I met someone. His name was Daniel, and he was different from anyone I had ever dated. He was down to earth, kind, and had a sense of humor that instantly put me at ease. We spent the evening talking, and I found myself genuinely enjoying his company. Daniel was a successful entrepreneur in his own right, but what struck me most about him was his humility. He didn't flaunt his wealth or try to impress me with grand gestures. Instead, he was genuinely interested in getting to know me, and our conversations flowed effortlessly. By the end of the night, he asked if he could take me out for dinner sometime, and for the first time in a long time, I said yes. Our first date was simple but perfect. We went to a small, family-owned Italian restaurant that Daniel had discovered years ago. Over plates of homemade pasta and glasses of wine, we talked about everything: our backgrounds, our passions, our goals for the future. There was an ease between us that felt natural, and by the time the evening ended, I knew I wanted to see him again. As our relationship blossomed, I found myself feeling something I hadn't felt in years: true happiness. Daniel and I complemented each other in so many ways. He was supportive of my career, and I admired his drive and ambition. But more than that, we shared the same values and dreams for the future. One evening, as we sat on the balcony of my apartment, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, Daniel turned to me with a serious expression. I've been thinking a lot about us, he began, his voice soft. About where we're headed. And I want you to know that I'm in this for the long haul. I see a future with you, and I want us to build it together. His words took my breath away. I had spent so long guarding my heart, but with Daniel, everything felt right. There was no doubt, no hesitation, just a deep, abiding love that had grown between us. I feel the same way, I admitted, my heart swelling with emotion. I never expected to find someone like you, but I'm so glad I did. In that moment, I knew that my life was changing once again. But this time, it wasn't about breaking free or proving something to myself. It was about embracing the love and happiness that I had found with Daniel, and being open to whatever the future held. As the months passed, our relationship continued to grow. We traveled together, celebrated milestones, and supported each other through the ups and downs of life. I introduced Daniel to my friends and family, and they welcomed him with open arms. For the first time in a long time, I felt truly at peace, like all the pieces of my life were finally falling into place. One day, as we strolled through a park hand in hand, Daniel stopped suddenly and turned to face me. There was a nervous energy in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. "There's something I need to ask you," he said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. My heart skipped a beat as he knelt down on one knee, opening the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring. "I love you more than anything," Daniel said, his voice filled with emotion. "You've brought so much joy and meaning into my life, and I can't imagine spending the rest of it without you. Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in my eyes as I nodded, overwhelmed with happiness. "Yes, Daniel, I will." As he slipped the ring onto my finger, I realized that this was the life I had always dreamed of. Not just one of success and independence, but one filled with love, partnership, and a future I could build with someone who truly understood and cherished me. We were married in a beautiful, intimate ceremony surrounded by our closest friends and family. It was a day filled with love, laughter, and the promise of a bright future together. As we danced under the stars that night, I couldn't help but think about how far I had come. From the girl who had once been belittled and underestimated, to the woman who had built a life filled with love, success, and endless possibilities. And as I looked into Daniel's eyes, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter filled with love, adventure, and the kind of happiness that comes from sharing your life with someone who truly sees and appreciates you for who you are. As Daniel and I settled into married life, we both found ourselves navigating the complexities of merging two successful careers with our shared life goals. It wasn't always easy, but the love and mutual respect we had for each other made every challenge feel manageable. We made it a point to communicate openly about everything, from our professional aspirations to our plans for the future. One of the most significant decisions we faced was whether to expand my cafe business further. I had received multiple offers from investors who were eager to take the brand nationwide, but I wasn't sure if that was the direction I wanted to go. Daniel, always supportive, encouraged me to follow my instincts. "You've built something incredible," he said one evening as we discussed the potential expansion. "But you don't have to rush into anything. Think about what you truly want, whether it's growing the business or keeping it small and special." His words resonated with me. The cafe had always been more than just a business. It was a reflection of my passion, creativity, and hard work. I decided to take some time to really consider what my next step should be. Around this time, Daniel's business was also thriving, and he was presented with an opportunity to open an office on the West Coast. The idea of moving to a new city excited both of us, but it also meant leaving behind the life we had built. After much deliberation, we decided to take the plunge and relocate, seeing it as a new adventure and a fresh start. Moving across the country was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. We found a beautiful home in a vibrant neighborhood, surrounded by towering trees and close-knit community vibes. The house was a mid-century modern gem, with large windows that let in plenty of natural light, and an expansive backyard that Daniel immediately started envisioning as our future garden oasis. Settling into our new city, we made an effort to explore and immerse ourselves in the local culture. I'd even started taking cooking classes at a nearby culinary school, something I had always wanted to do but never had the time for. Daniel and I also began hosting small dinner parties, inviting our new neighbors and some of our old friends who had moved to the area as well. It wasn't long before the idea of opening a new cafe in our new city began to take shape. This time, I wanted to do something different, something that reflected the unique character of our new home. Inspired by my cooking classes, I envisioned a cafe that combined a bakery with a farm-to-table concept, using fresh, locally sourced ingredients. With Daniel's encouragement and support, I began to lay the groundwork for the new venture. I found a charming, historic building in the heart of the city that was perfect for the cafe. The space had high ceilings, exposed brick walls, and large windows that overlooked a bustling street. It had a rustic charm that I knew would be the perfect backdrop for the warm, welcoming atmosphere I wanted to create. As we worked on the renovation and design of the new cafe, Daniel and I found ourselves growing even closer. We spent countless hours discussing ideas, choosing decor, and planning the menu together. It felt like we were building not just a business, but a life. One filled with creativity, collaboration, and shared dreams. Opening day was a huge success. The cafe quickly became a local favorite, with customers raving about the fresh, delicious food and the cozy, inviting space. It was everything I had hoped for and more. Daniel was there every step of the way, cheering me on and celebrating each milestone with me. Despite our busy schedules, we made it a priority to carve out time for each other. We started a tradition of taking monthly weekend trips to explore different parts of the West Coast. Whether it was hiking in the mountains, wine tasting in Napa Valley, or relaxing on the beaches of Big Sur, these getaways became a cherished part of our lives. One particularly memorable trip took us to a small, secluded cabin in the redwoods. Surrounded by towering trees and the sounds of nature, we found a peaceful escape from the hustle and bustle of our everyday lives. One evening, as we sat by the fire pit, toasting marshmallows and gazing at the stars, Daniel turned to me with a thoughtful expression. "I've been thinking a lot about our future," he began, his voice soft. "About what we want to build together. We've done so much already, but there's something that's been on my mind. I looked at him, intrigued. What is it? He hesitated for a moment, then smiled. I want to start a family with you. His words took me by surprise, but in the best possible way. The idea of starting a family had been something we had talked about in abstract terms, but hearing Daniel say it now made it feel real and tangible. I want that too, I said, my heart swelling with love. I want to build a life with you, one that's filled with love, laughter, and everything we've always dreamed of. The decision to start a family added a new layer of excitement and anticipation to our lives. We began making plans, discussing how we would balance our careers with raising children, and what kind of parents we wanted to be. We even started looking at houses with more space, envisioning a home where we could grow our family and create lasting memories. As we embarked on this new chapter, I couldn't help but reflect on how far we had come. From the uncertainty and challenges of our early days together, to the love and partnership that had blossomed between us, our journey had been nothing short of extraordinary. And as we stood together, hand in hand, looking out at the vast, beautiful world before us, I knew that our story was far from over. There were still so many adventures to be had, so many dreams to chase, and so much love to give. Together, we would face whatever the future held, knowing that we had each other to lean on, no matter what. In that moment, I realized that true happiness wasn't about the money, the success, or even the material things. It was about the people you choose to share your life with, the love you give and receive, and the memories you create along the way. And with Daniel by my side, I knew that I was exactly where I was meant to be, building a life